Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero. Our guest today is Captain Leslie Nicole Smith. She was deployed to Bosnia in September of 2001 with the 29th Infantry Division for Stabilization Force 10 during Operation Joint Forge. 2 weeks before the end of her first tour, she developed a blood clot. She wanted to stay, but the general she worked for insisted she'd take care of the clot and sent her back to the U.S. on a medevac. Turned out to be a crucial call. By the time she was back stateside, she was barely alive. She was admitted to Walter Reed Army Medical Center for complications resulting from exposure to a chemical agent. She ultimately lost her leg and most of her sight. Today she's legally blind, and she's been medically retired from the Army, but that doesn't stop her. She's an advocate for veterans and a spokesperson for organizations including Canines for Veterans, the USO, the Fisher House Foundation, and the American Veterans Disabled for Life Memorial. She received a secretarial appointment to the Department of Veteran Affairs Advisory Committee on Women Veterans, participates with the Department of Defense Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program, and serves as the official ambassador for Wreaths Across America and an ambassador for the Gary Sinise Foundation. She's a powerhouse and inspiration, and she's our guest today, Leslie Nicole Smith.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Morata.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hi, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hi, everyone. I'm retired Captain Leslie Nicole Smith, and Isaac, my service dog, is here with me, and we are on the Break It Down show.
And now, the Break It Down show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Yes, Isaac is my co-host today, and it's great to know that someone like you is out there, Leslie, because your story is incredible, and we're going to get into that soon. Just so you know, from all of us combat veterans out there, you're joining a class that includes Mike Day, who was shot 27 times in combat and lived. He's a SEAL. Josh Montz, who was shot and killed 12 years ago. He was dead for 15 minutes, and they brought him back. And so, you know, with as tough as all of you all are, I always want to recognize that it's incredible that we live in a time where, you know, you've got a catastrophic injury, you lose your leg, you lose your vision for the most part, and yet you're still out there. And where do you lean forward? You lean forward in helping veterans. You work for the Gary Sinise Foundation, which, again, thank you to all of you guys for what you do out there. But I just wanted to open up by just saying thanks, because everybody has hard days, and I know from all of us veterans who, you know, we all need I had a rough day today. I went for a surgical consult to fix a hernia, refix a hernia,
right.
You know, and it's no big deal, but sometimes you just need someone to say, hey, and at the VA, you know how it is there, I'm in great shape. I don't have to take any pills. I'm in for a minor surgery. So just to know that there's someone out there helping us all try to get a little better, it's a big thing, and you and Isaac deserve a lot of thanks. So I'll start by saying thank you. But let's get into, you know, I tease the whole fact that you lose your leg and you lose your vision. Let's get into that so we can get that out of the way and get on to the good stuff.
Right, right. Well, just to kind of start from a little bit in the beginning, I decided to join the Army because my dad had served, my grandfather had served, and honestly, it came down to wanting to continue that tradition and then also to make them, you know, proud. So I had received an Army ROTC scholarship through Georgetown University, and it was really the best decision of my life. And through my service, I ended up serving in Bosnia in 2001, volunteered to go, turned out to be the most incredible, rewarding, amazing mission ever, because what I found was the people in the country were just so thankful that the troops were there, and they would thank us every day. Their gratitude was just, you know, amazing. So that prompted me then to want to stay for a second tour, which was approved, and I was serving as a public affairs officer. So I had this really great job where I got out and about around the country whenever our celebrities would come to visit, or high-ranking politicians, military, you know, admirals and generals, and I was really engaged. I really loved the job and the mission we were doing. So I was so excited to be approved for the second tour. And then it was almost like I just hit a brick wall.
Huh.
And what happened, my story was I developed a blood clot in my left leg. And it was pretty much like the mindset was, well, this is nothing. There's nothing wrong with me. Physically, you can't see it or anything. And I'm trying to convince the brigade surgeon and the general that I'm okay, I can stay. And I'll never forget the general's words. And he said, quote, "Smith, you're out of here tonight, pack your bags." And that was really the most devastating thing that you could say to a soldier who is on a mission.
Right.
And I ended up going back to the quarters and packing up literally what I could carry on the plane out that evening, back stateside to Walter Reed. And then everything actually just went downward in this like crazy spiral. And honestly, it was the best decision because Walter Reed admitted me, of course, and I was retired literally on the spot. And the Army had what they called imminent death status at the time. And it was paperwork that more or less signed off on that you had 24 hours to live. And
Wow.
Family was called in. I mean, they were making funeral arrangements. My parents were having to deal with, the question of, do you want her buried at Arlington National Cemetery? Do you want to take her, back home? And all the while, I'm in the hospital bed, not really obviously aware because of all the pain and everything that had happened with this just crazy medical stuff that was happening from this blood clot. And luckily, though, the doctors kept pursuing, an answer or a treatment. They were reaching out to other doctors from what they told me across the country, across into Canada, over into Europe, trying to figure something out. They came back with a last solution, a shot basically, and they told my parents it's our last effort. It's either gonna possibly take her life on like immediately from a stroke or a heart attack, but if we don't at least try it, we're gonna lose her anyway.
Wow.
My parents, of course, said, give it to her. And I honestly like to say that, of course, credit to the doctors, but it was also my stubbornness and something inside just, I knew it wasn't my time.
Huh.
There was more to do. There was just more to do. And I had a bigger purpose. And then I started to think that, and understanding all of this, that even though I couldn't wear the uniform and fight the fight anymore, so to say, I couldn't deploy and go overseas and continue, that I had a completely new mission and that new purpose. Okay. And so with that, in the initial stages, having lost my leg because the complications were so dire that I lost my left leg, right below the knee. It came down to, you have a choice, and everybody really obviously has this choice. It was, I can roll over and just give up, face the wall and be a victim, or I can say, I'm going to forge on, let my military, like training and discipline and attitude kicked in to forge me forward to overcome this new challenge. And that's what really, I think, got me over that initial thought of my life is over. Because believe me, I did.
Yeah.
I thought, this is it. I'm going to be, at home forever, never going to be engaged in anything. I'm going to always be hiding, in a sense, because now I'm missing part of my leg and I'm deformed, so to say. Like, I'm just disfigured and people are going to shun me. And it turned out that I pulled this inner strength that sometimes I don't even know where it came from, but it's like this inner fortitude that I just tapped into in this kind of one-on-one with yourself when you're in the hospital bed and you've just survived death. You've just survived, this traumatic operation that took part of yourself, and relearning a new normal or re-identifying with yourself. And I really just decided it wasn't going to overcome me, or it wasn't going to beat me, because this inner strength just kind of came out of nowhere and made me realize that I have all the potential in the world, and that there's a reason for this. There has to be a reason that I survived. Finding that reason then turned into what I call the passion of giving back and helping fellow wounded, ill, and injured warriors, military service members, their families, and even now, working with first responders. And it's just been amazing getting to this point.
Well, let's back up a little bit and talk a little bit about your recovery. So the mental attitude kicks in. Has that something that you've always had, or was this something that you found in the process of losing your leg, and all of the other damage that came with the problem with your blood?
Right. I think probably a little bit in my personality already, but it just went into overdrive when I realized that, again, I had that choice. And really, you can apply that to any situation in your life, whatever challenge or obstacle, you may have, or just deciding simply if you want to have a good day or not. And that's probably because I was in Walter Reed for almost 8 months.
Oh, wow.
That was really all that I had, except for my parents who were there with me nonstop, and of course the amazing doctors and nurses. But like I said, it really comes down to dealing with yourself, because it's just coming down to the basics of survival. How do I want to move on? How do I want this challenge or this obstacle and move on? So I think it's a combination of both, but I really think because of the tragedy and the misfortune, though, so much good came out of it on a much higher level. Okay. That has kept me going every day.
Okay, so it's kept you going every day. You get retired from something that you were passionate about. It seems like you might have been called to be in the Army, and you get retired as a captain. So it's not like you can just kick back and do nothing and live on your fancy captain retirement. Even with the disability stuff, you still got to go out and get a job. So talk about that when you're like, what am I going to do now? I mean, and did that time of recovery also overlap with now I'm going to start working time? I mean, at some point you do have to get back to work. Talk a little bit about that part of your recovery and figuring out what it was that you needed to do.
Right, because that was kind of a scary, reality and scary question, because of, again, how I would be accepted. Would I be able to do the job? Because mentally and emotionally and even really spiritually, you go through, I'm not the same person anymore. I am not a whole person. Am I going to be valued as a person, or how am I just going to be accepted? And again, I'm going to give credit back to, the military and our training, and how you always complete the mission, no matter really what it takes. Military service members, we will go to the very end to complete it. So it was more or less probably to a challenge of, can I do this? Okay. And then I ended up working actually for the USO World Headquarters. It was my first job out of Walter Reed as an amputee. And at the time, I actually still had all of my vision. The vision loss came a little later. But I remember, again, struggling with the feelings of going to work for the USO, even though that's like this amazing organization that supports military and, and the families and everything. There was still just that apprehension of, are people going to think I can't do the job 150% because I'm missing part of myself.
Right.
And honestly, I think the best thing for me was going back to work and getting back, into that groove, and having, again, an amazing job where I felt related, because that was another big piece. I mean, I could have gone to work at, McDonald's or Walmart or, right. SAIC or something like that. But what drew me to the USO, of course, was that connected feeling that I'm, even though not in the uniform, but I'm still part of the big picture and the service and, fighting for our country. I'm just now giving back in a different way. And that was really, I think, mentally very helpful, because I didn't feel so disconnected, which then, could have led to, I'm not going to leave the house anymore because I don't have that purpose. Right. And so I worked for the USO for a year, and then went to work for the Department of Navy as a public affairs officer. And again, giving back to the warfighter and the mission, and it really kept me involved. And then also within the network of other veterans, of course, military and their families, I started to see what the needs were. That there was this network, resources that were needed, other veterans needing help with like the VA paperwork,
Boy,
claims. And
let me
because
just stop you there and just say this. I have a disability rating, and I got it a while back, and I have, since that time, been trying to navigate the process of fixing that and getting it to what it needs to be. I'll say this too, is that you have a paper that you get. This is for my friends who are listening in the audience. There's a paper they give you called a DD-214, and it's the end-all be-all of your military experience. Everything you did and accomplished is on that thing. And I don't know what your experience is, Leslie, but mine is wholly inaccurate. Like, I'm lucky that it has my name and my social on it. Otherwise, it's maybe 20% accurate. And just for everyone to understand, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people that, are doing a million things. So it's hard to get it all in 2 pages and to do it accurately and to have all of your stuff on there. So the system is huge and it's really hard to do all that stuff. But I've got to tell you, someone like Leslie that has the ability to help you navigate through the VA system, to get your care to where it needs to be, to make sure you're being properly compensated and all, it is impossible to do by yourself. There's just no way to do it. We have to have people. You can get care. Sometimes that care fails you, but you have to have a guide. It's several different guides, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Yes. And I think for me, honestly, since I was so early on with being at Walter Reed in 2002, actually, I was the second amputee at Walter Reed, which is hard to even fathom with, the numbers over, the course of the 2 conflicts and everything. So everything was so new. In fact, when I asked the prosthetic department if I could tangibly see a prosthetic leg, they did not have one to show me.
Wow.
That's really kind of how, because I was in there asking to be able to wear high heels again.
Right.
And I think they were a little bit like, wait, what? Like high heels. And I was like, in fact, that was the first question after my amputation surgery to the doctor was, am I going to be able to wear high heels again? I never even asked if I could walk again. Like My whole thing was being able to wear heels, and probably somewhere in my mind, I'm thinking, well, that was like the old me, even though this is the new me. That doesn't mean I have to lose myself or lose that ability to continue life how I would like to live it. So I was so, upfront in the beginning that honestly, I didn't really have help. And it was all more or less like, you kind of know, here, this is kind of what you need to do, but we're really not going to tell you what you need to do. You have to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then what's so frustrating is you have a service member who's dealing with visible and or invisible wounds. You're dealing with that whole magnitude of, again, you've been just like say injured and you're pulled from your fellow service members, which is devastating enough because all of us want to serve and protect and come home and, and do the mission.
Yeah.
You're dealing again mentally, emotionally with what just happened to my body. I'm not in control so much anymore. I'm not over there fighting and supporting. I'm trying to just survive. And the last thing you really even can comprehend or deal with is this massive amount of paperwork. And then you're right, like not technically being guided. So really from my experience, that's been a big drive for me. Yeah. And I've had a lot of veterans reach out on, how do you navigate or what's the best place to go to? How do you do this? Or, and that type of thing. So it's really been purposeful and rewarding to me.
One of the things too, I want to add to the complexity of what we're talking about is there are trip falls. You want to be honest, but honesty isn't always the best policy when dealing with the VA. So you take people that are I would say in our DNA, we're trying to be upfront. We're trying to have good character. We're trying to be honest. We want to do as much as we can with what we've got. We're pushing, and we want to be resilient and do this by ourselves. And the entire VA system, it's totally designed against that. Like you have to be very careful of what you say. If you're like, my ears ring all the time and I really struggle to sleep, but I'm okay. They're going to be like, okay, he says he's okay. They'll believe you.
Exactly. That's right. I know. I really do think that they do have it, as much as I do love the VA, and their care, honestly, for me has been really phenomenal, especially with the vision loss part of my story. But it, they really seem to program it that it's like a maze,
Right.
that you just kind of go in circles, to almost to the point where they want you to maybe just say, I can't deal with it.
Yes.
Because it's so upfront with your your new injuries and or wounds and illnesses as you're recovering, like say at Walter Reed or whichever military hospital. The last thing you even want to think about is this overload of paperwork, and it's like like you said, it's daunting, it's overwhelming, it's frustrating, and it's difficult. I mean, I know that they're working on making it better, and have made improvements and whatnot. And then, like I said, just from my own personal participation in helping veterans through the years, like I said, get to the right place or talk to the right person or talk to the right department, and that type of thing has been another big piece of my recovery and the rehab, and all part of the reintegration for myself, and understanding that just kind of coming back to what I said earlier, having that new mission or that new purpose.
Right. Yeah. Talk about that purpose then. So you pick up the ability to work with the incredible work that Gary Sinise has done. Give us an idea about the background with that.
Right. So I had the amazing opportunity to first cross paths with Gary Sinise back in about 2005, 2006 timeframe with the American Veterans Disabled for Life Memorial that was built in Washington, D.C. And at the time, he was serving as the national spokesperson. We would cross paths at a lot of these events, even hosted like by the USO, at Walter Reed when he would come to visit. We just kind of kept crossing paths. And one thing led to the next. And soon I was working alongside him as a soldier spokesperson, as I would call myself, and a few other wounded warriors to help raise awareness for this very important memorial, since it is the only one dedicated to living veterans, living disabled veterans. And it just kind of, that relationship and that friendship and that trust of seeing each other and working together just really built over the years. And then in June of 2011, he established the Gary Sinise Foundation. And January of 2013, he started the ambassador program, when he reached out to ask me to serve as an ambassador, and with that to represent him, and of course the amazing work with the foundation, at events to speak on his behalf. We've done, many events over the years where we'll go and talk about the foundation or accept a donation check, participate, in a race, that type of thing. A lot of all sorts of different incredible opportunities, and attend different events that the foundation sponsors, across the country.
Right. Yeah, it's important work to be able to do that, to be able to go and be the front face for something called the Gary Sinise. And like,
right, I know. Yes, because I mean his story, alone is just completely incredible. How really what started was he did come from a family of people that served, and and veterans in his family. But what really was the catalyst was his role as Lieutenant Dan. Right. In Forrest Gump, because then from that and doing this phenomenal job, playing Lieutenant Dan, the double amputee, the Disabled American Veterans Organization recognized Gary Sinise at their annual convention. And it was just the one amazing thing about Gary Sinise. He's just so genuine, and he takes the time to talk to each person, and he relates to you. So he'll sit and have a conversation with you and your parents, your brother, your sister. Like with Isaac, my service dog, I consider Isaac, as an ambassador as well. And Isaac will wear the Gary Sinise Foundation, bandana, and, he talks to Isaac, and people just really relate to that, and they don't forget that. And I tell him all the time, I'll say, I'll be out over here or over there, and people will see Gary Sinise Foundation on like my pin or shirt, or they just know I have that role. And the minute you just, not even the second, you say, Gary Sinise, I mean, people light up like Christmas trees. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, I saw the Lieutenant Dan band, or I loved him in Forrest Gump, or I met him at Walter Reed and he signed a poster, or he signed my hat, or he talked to my mom for like 10 minutes, or he took pictures, he really like spent time. And that's why people just love him and love the work that he's doing. And he just keeps giving and giving with all the different programs that the foundation offers, and just the outreach and that connection is just puts him, up there at the top. And I can't say enough how proud I am to serve as an ambassador for the foundation.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that work in the we want to help veterans space, and
Yeah.
we're often critical of a lot of them, and rightfully so. There's been a lot of less than honest dealings with these things, but I think as a complete Department of Defense, we all take what Gary does seriously, and there's no doubt about his desire to really do this. And I should also say briefly. Julie Duchek is a member in the Lieutenant Dan band and has been for years, and she's a friend of mine from Chicago. And so anytime we get a chance to celebrate Julie and her work, she's about to have a baby, by the way, we always have to do that. But in terms of dealing with Lieutenant Dan, in terms of dealing with Gary Sinise, I just call him Lieutenant.
I know. He's called that all the time, right?
Yeah, but his name's really Gary Sinise.
That's right.
But just to hear that he goes up to Isaac and engages with him. How often do you interact with Gary in a year? Do you see him very often?
We see him, I guess quite often. More so when he's maybe on the East Coast, as far as versus stuff on the West Coast, just because of the distance and everything. But have ability to communicate with him, at any time. And again, every time we do see him, it's you really just can't put it into words, just that, that feeling of, again, how humbled I am and proud I am to represent him and speak on his behalf. But I would say, in a year, probably cross paths anywhere from like maybe up to 10 times.
Oh, wow. So quite a bit.
So, a good bit, because again, he's nonstop. He's all over, the world, of course, but, when he's in the United States, doing everything with the concerts and work at Walter Reed,
right,
Fort Belvoir and that type of thing,
sure.
New York, very involved in New York. We travel really up and down the coast, on the East Coast for events and doing things to represent him. So it's, and Isaac always just gets so excited, to see him. In fact, when we do see him, I'll say to Isaac, as if like Isaac's talking, like saying, "Hi, Uncle Gary." It's like, it's just that kind of relationship. But that's what Gary brings to the table, and that's why people again love him, because he's so genuine and caring.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you're accomplishing on a day-to-day basis? I mean, I know helping people do paperwork and that kind of thing, but give us more on that. Maybe some examples of the kind of help that veterans need, because you and I know intuitively, because we see it, we do it, we understand it. But the folks in the audience who are listening, and there's a worldwide audience here. We got friends in New Zealand and Japan and France. Give them an idea of what kind of things that these guys need help with.
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner
or at JohnLG69
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
Give them an idea of what kind of things that these guys need help with.
Oh, yeah, all sorts of, different things. I think the one top priority is getting our veterans engaged and not regressing or withdrawing. Even on the local level with our American Legions and BFWs, that type of thing, that's probably the biggest challenge. And what I found with talking to veterans through the years what opens the door is talking to a veteran and saying, for myself, this is how I feel. This is what I experienced. And I did have bad days. And then that veteran is like, really? Like, you have the same, feelings or thoughts or challenges? And it's like, yes, absolutely. And I've served as a mentor with the Amputee Coalition of America, Wounded Warrior Project, and then it's just what I do. So I've, again, over the years, I've found that when you make that connection, that opens that door. And then you can say, okay, what would you be interested in doing? Where do you need help? Whether it's, transportation or even the benefits side, an adaptable home, getting involved with events. A lot of times veterans will say, well, I don't know how to get involved with Wounded Warrior Project or the USO or whatever it may be.
Right.
And I mean, luckily for me, I've been I am a spokesperson for USO, for the Fisher House, Wounded Warrior Project, Canines for Veterans. And just through the years of networking and talking to people, really do have a lot of avenues and connections to the different organizations that's why I said people will send me messages like on Facebook or LinkedIn and saying, can you help with this? Or I know a veteran or a family that needs help. Can you help me put them in the right direction? That's like the first thing that comes to mind. Another thing that I do that I believe is truly very helpful in more of the terms of the visible and invisible wounds or illnesses and injuries is that I more or less provide input or testimony with the congressionally directed medical research program. And what that is, it's I serve on like the vision loss and prosthetics panels. And so every year the panel will convene and you'll have scientists and doctors and high level people putting in submissions for proposed, new technologies, new ways to save lives on the battlefield, for example, like with vision loss. And then we review and then provide input as far as pros and cons and how we think that would relate to that mission of providing this new technology so that it gets funded. And it's always a great feeling to see and read about this, these advancements, because again, it's all for purposes of saving lives, lessening the time of once you're injured on the battlefield to get you to, the right medical care and preserve life, limb, your vision, TBIs, to just, it all encompasses, again, that support and care of our service members on the battlefield and then when they come back.
Yeah, you think about your specific case, you were prepared to stay, and you look at your chances of survival are long. If you had taken, if you miss a helicopter, you may not get one for another 4 days to get out of there.
Right.
So you literally could be dead in like, yes, you've made it, and yes, you're largely, you don't have your leg, your vision's not as good, but you're a whole person who can go out and work. If you mess about it at all, and totally different outcomes. So you think about the next person that comes down the line, and even if the commander's like, get out of here, and they're like, nah, I'm going to stay, like the cost and coming back from that, if you're able to, is significant. And it's just shocking how hard we all honor ourselves to try to just do our dang job, and what that really can cost long term. It's because you're right, there's the visible, but there's those invisible wounds where if you saw them, you would instantly drop to your knees and care for that person, and not be so damn judgy. And that's in general. That's like first responders or anybody else. If you could see a divorce on someone's stomach, you would be like, oh my God, let me not be a dick to you right now, because obviously you're dealing with a lot of stuff.
That's right. Exactly. So it's, like I said, it's certainly been a journey. And then with the vision loss part, which totally unexpected, there was no rhyme or reason or warning signs. It just happened through the night. And I've seen all kinds of specialists. Walter Reed had finally sent me on to Johns Hopkins because it took all the vision in my left eye initially. Happened a few more times, but the VA was able to preserve the right eye. The last time it happened in 2010, though, it was so severe that it actually took all my vision in the right eye, but a small sliver came back, and I'm legally blind. But it goes back again to, really that military training, because it was like, okay, I got knocked down again and again and again, but I have more or less this foundation that I've built from getting knocked down, that each time it seems like I get back up, even stronger. And then the things I'm able to do despite, like, for example, I can't drive anymore. Huge challenge.
Right.
Humongous. I mean, there's no word to really describe that. I mean, I figure it out. So I have people that help out or drive. There's car services, there's all of that. But instead of saying, well, I can't drive, so I'm just going to be at home, again, that kicks in of like, well, no, because I'm still working, I'm still helping, I'm still, giving back. And there's still people that I can reach out to and make a difference for. And one of those opportunities that I had in helping the fastest growing population of the military are women, service members, female veterans. And I had the opportunity to serve as a VA appointee on the Women Veterans Advisory Committee. And very rewarding, very eye-opening to be able to contribute recommendations to the VA secretary on ways to improve resources, services, recognize our female veterans, because you probably have heard that women veterans tend to not self-identify with their service, because so many of us will, let's say, be, at the store, at the VA. People come up and say, oh, that's nice that you drove your grandfather to his appointment, or that's nice you brought your husband.
Yes.
We'll have a shirt that says Army, and then a person at the store will say, oh, well, you're a military spouse, thank you for your service. And it's always like, oh, I'm the veteran, I'm the one that served, I'm a woman, and just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I can't do the job,
Right.
So I've been working on that and several different avenues or campaigns, recognition for the female veteran population, because we have to, again, it's all about the awareness that our women are veterans too, and that you can, there's the flip side of it too. It's like you can still be a woman in the military, be feminine, so to say. It's not always, like I helped to co-found Fatigues to Fabulous, which was a nonprofit that helps, women veterans just transition. And, it's like that whole aspect of you don't have to regress or withdraw from the service, or, that you've served, because you can't be a woman. And that you can still be, beautiful inside and out, because as women, that's, how we think too. And that's been a lot of fun over the last couple of years with Fatigues to Fabulous, and, doing some events and creating that awareness that is hopefully bringing more to the forefront that you don't have to not identify with your service and have people, ask you these crazy questions. They really should be, if you have a shirt on that says Army or veteran, they should be up front, saying thanks or where did you serve, versus the opposite kinds of questions.
Yeah. When your PR guy James was getting a hold of me, and he's like, "Do you want to have a female service?" Yes, of course, because we need to hear from all of you too. I mean, Scott Husing's a friend of mine. He's been co-hosted on the show, I don't know, over a dozen times, and he and I both have been in all of the combat you ever need. And we're both open about this. Like, we love female service members. We want you on the battlefield with us, contributing, not just as a PAO, but grab your gun, let's go. Let's go out and patrol these streets and bring what you bring, because that's what makes us all better, is seeing and recognizing that. And whatever I can do, I don't even think about the fact that when I show up to the VA, they assume I'm the veteran, and it would bug the fuck out of me to get there and be like, motherfucker, you know what? It would drive me crazy to have them
Right.
think I was just there picking up my grandpa or my husband. It literally has never occurred to me. I've got to change how I see that because I'm positive I've been guilty of that. But just that thing right there is like you've already done your job today. You've made the
Right.
world a slightly better place.
That's right. Well, and you think we're in the year 2019, but it's still happening, and it's so prevalent because it's really one of the top things that at the agenda for female veterans. That's the first thing they'll fire off is like, that I get mistaken for being the spouse, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just that again, that stereotype that women can't serve or don't serve. And so what that does is then it leads that female veteran to step back away and be like, well, if I'm not looked upon or recognized as the veteran, I'm going to withdraw and step back, and then I'm not going to identify with my service because everybody in the public is just assuming or associating that I'm, the spouse or here with my grandfather, or I'm picking up meds, for my dad, who's the veteran.
Mm-hmm.
And it's creating then this disconnect with, the American public, and causing, again, for our female veterans to just kind of step back or harder to reach because they're hidden more.
Yeah.
And so there's all sorts of efforts now being placed on female veterans and bringing them to the forefront and celebrating them and recognizing them for their accomplishments and the amazing things. I mean, we can do the same jobs, absolutely, in the military.
Yeah.
And I do think that things are going to start to turn just because there is more of a push on this effort. And it would be really nice to go in to the VA and be, like recognized, or if somebody's looking at you like, oh, she's a veteran. Wow, that's great. Instead of that opposite. We're getting there.
Yeah, we are getting there. And part of the courage that we all have to show is it's okay to make this mistake. It's okay to go, oh my God, you're right. And then just accept that it's your mistake and learn from it. Like, I didn't see you as being a veteran. I thought you were here to give someone a ride or someone's wife. My apologies, my sincere. And then, then it gets to be okay a little bit more because you're that much more aware that you're right. I would not want that to happen to me. So it's such a crazy thing.
Well, and even kind of shifting gears a little bit with having Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So, I wear a prosthetic and then I'm legally blind. Actually, as I didn't put this in here, but from the doctors feel I was exposed to a chemical agent or a toxin while serving in Bosnia.
Right.
Which over the years, has caused the vision loss. So when you look at me, you really can't necessarily tell I have vision loss. So when I see people, out in public and I have Isaac, the first question I get is, oh, that's really nice. So you're training this dog, for somebody.
Right.
And it's, my first reaction is, no, actually, Isaac's my service dog. We've been together 10 years. And then the next question is, well, what's wrong with you? Because they can't quite figure out, and I just usually reply, depending on time and everything, well, he helps me. And then a lot of times, yes, it turns into a more of a full-blown educational conversation.
Sure.
And I tell him everything. I explain, the service dogs, talk about canines for veterans, where he was trained, how he helps me,
right.
The vision loss. And then it's like, oh, I had no idea. I couldn't tell. And then I branch off into, right, because veterans, we're very proud. And because we have each other, and again, this whole network and the resources of supporting one another, when you see one doing something, it kind of propels, others to say, well, wait, if they're doing that, like skiing or the marathons or, all these different scuba diving, it's like, well, I want to try that, so it's really great when people do, in public, say things, because it's this open door to educate them across the board about veterans, how they can support the service dogs, and that not all, again, wounds are visible. We have visible and invisible, and all injuries, wounds, illnesses need, are taken seriously and need to be respected as that, that
Yeah.
no matter what it is that you're challenged with or facing, that's what you're dealing with, and we work to make the best of it.
The other day, Scott Husing and I were out, and most of the day, I was having a really hard day. We were doing incredible stuff. We're interviewing a screenwriter who's written, well, his name's Billy Ray, and he wrote The Hunger Games screenplay. He wrote Captain Phillips. This guy is one of the top screenwriters in all of LA. And so that's incredible. And we also did one with a guy named Vincent Vargas. And he is on the show The Mayans on FX. He's a veteran, and it's all these great conversations. The underlying thing is that the whole day, I wanted to jump off a bridge. Like I was like, I feel doom. I'm not actually going to take action. I'm in a good place, but largely I felt suicidal most of the day. You would never have known it. You're having this incredible day, but there's these wounds that you can't see, and then I'm not even going to offer because I don't want to get into the whole thing with it. I can say it now openly because that moment is over, but I'm fine, but I'm not fine, right?
Exactly, right.
And so I don't want to make a bigger deal out of it than it needs to be, but I had to cope with it the whole day. It's like you have a scab and you punched it on your way out the door and it's weeping all day, and it's like, damn it, but It's just going to be that. It's just going to be that way, and there's nothing you can do about it. How do people help in terms of the Gary Sinise Foundation? People want to break out a checkbook. They want to give their time. How do they lend help to what you guys are doing?
Well, I mean, certainly can, always make a donation, the website, or like you said, send in a check. But a lot of times need volunteers, for different events. People can always certainly reach out to myself as an ambassador. There's on the website, they list all of the ambassadors, on there that you could reach out to as well. But pretty much the best way is send me a message, and then I can get you connected in the best way that, you can give back, depending on where you live, what your availability is, what you'd be interested in helping with. The foundation just has all kinds of different programs, from like the Serving Heroes, where we go into Walter Reed or the military hospitals and provide lunch, just as a break for the service members to just come and get, a free lunch and learn a little bit about the foundation and just know that they're supported and they're not forgotten. There's the Lieutenant Dan Band concerts that are constantly going on around the country. There's like the RISE program, where this especially adapted homes are built, and the different communities will reach out and say, hey, where maybe are you building the next home? I might, if I live close to there, or I could help out, or come even to the dedication just as a show of support, wave a flag, and just say thank you. There's with Memorial Day coming up, Gary's in DC for the Memorial Day concert, and then in the parade. So if you're in the Washington DC area, I encourage you to come out, for the concert on the Capitol Hill lawn, and then the parade that takes place on Memorial Day, downtown Washington DC, and again, tons of like veterans and people out. So it's a great opportunity to just come out and show your thanks. And again, I encourage everybody, reach out to me. Best way, again, Facebook and LinkedIn, Leslie Nicole Smith, and send me a message, and we'll figure out a way that we can get you involved.
Yeah, if you guys struggle to find, because Leslie and Smith are things that are sometimes tough to sort out, I'm connected to her several different ways, so I can for sure get you all connected. And yeah, just a good reminder that a check is always helpful, but your time is extremely valuable. Coming to something and just supporting with your presence. You don't have to even do anything more than just come and shake and say, hey, thanks so much for doing this for veterans and being there. That means a lot. It means a lot to have 150 chairs out for remembering some aspect or doing something, and just being someone who's in that chair to say, I'm with you. It's a powerful thing, and other than some time, it doesn't cost you really much of anything at all. So a lot of ways to help. It doesn't have to be the Gary Sinise Foundation. There are ways to help your community in 1,000 ways. Get involved, get out there, and bend your back a little bit if you don't have much money. And if you have a little bit of money, then write a check and help out, because there's great people like Leslie out there leaning forward every day, trying to take the hurt and make it hurt a little less. And for that, we all owe you a thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, so much. And like I said, I really do encourage all listeners, no matter where you're living or where you're listening from, please feel free anytime, day or night, reach out to me. Pete as well, he can get in touch with me, and I will ensure you that I will do everything that I can to get you involved or find the best way for you to give back if that's something that you really want to do. And like Pete said, just coming out and clapping, saying thank you, waving a flag. I can tell you, each time it's overwhelming. You see this and it just really brings tears to your eyes, because we know then we're not forgotten, we're remembered, and we're thanked for our service.
Well, thank you for your service, Leslie. You are awesome. You are a warrior, and I really am proud to have you on. Let's do some more. Let's get you and I don't know, we'll find somebody else and we'll have a show together and do another one.
That would be great. Absolutely. So no, we really appreciate. Isaac says hi. He says thanks for your
Hi, Isaac.
for your time. And it's been great, because I love to just share my story, because the one thing I found is if you can just help one person.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, here's a perfect example of one time we were doing an event, and I was telling my story, and literally a lady in the audience came up afterwards, and she said, "You know what? I've been wanting to go to the gym, but I keep putting it off." And she said, after hearing you talk, she goes, "I'm going to the gym tonight." And I got chills, because I was like, it comes back to the purpose. Because again, if you help one person, that person then takes that motivation that they got from you, or even the inspiration, and helps another person. That domino effect of the giving back and making that difference and hoping to change lives for the better.
Yeah, even a little bit of help. All right, we're going to get you and Gabby on the show together. That would be awesome, because the two of you are doing great things. That would be a lot of fun.
Yes, that would be. That would be amazing. So we'll have to definitely do that.
Okay, deal. We're going to do it.